So we've talked about what makes up a phylogenetic tree, how to construct them. Now let's talk about what makes a good phylogenetic tree and the characteristics that are helpful when interpreting phylogenetic trees. So in some phylogenetic trees, you might see what we call a polytomy. Most of the trees that we've been looking at so far are what we call dichotomous trees, or they have a dichotomous branch point where one lineage splits into two other lineages, and that lineage might split again, right? But there's only two branches that come off of one point. Some trees that you come across might have what we call a polytomy. So poly meaning many, right? And what that polytomy represents is that we right now don't have enough evidence to determine the order in which these species are related. So we don't know if P and Q are more related to each other, or maybe Q and R are more related to each other. We can't resolve it like this, right? Where we know S and T are sister taxa and U would be the outgroup. We would need more information to resolve this polytomy. So like here, this is a tree that we'll be looking at later. This is a tree of the entire domain of Eukarya, basically. And so there are several polytomies here. Right at the very beginning, right? We don't know exactly how these different groups are related to each other. We don't have enough information far enough back, really, to determine which groups are more closely related to each other. So we're essentially saying that they're all kind of equally related based on what we know, okay? And dashed lines sometimes just mean a general hypothesis. Like, we think that these all share one common ancestor and then they branch, but I'm not totally sure. Okay? Or kind of like, we think that this group should be right here and then it branched, but yeah, we're not sure. Okay, so dash lines mean we're not totally sure that they all share one lineage. And polytomies, again, are demonstrating that we don't have enough information as to the correct order of relationships between these groups. Here's another polytomy here, right? Here's another polytomy here. So there's still a lot of data and more information that we need in order to resolve the evolutionary relationships of these organisms. Also, when we're building phylogenies, we want to make clades monophyletic. So what that means is a clade is technically an ancestor and all of their descendants. So the most recent common ancestor and all of the descendants of that branch point, of that node. Phylo meaning tribe and mono meaning one, right? So one tribe, one group. So a clade that is monophyletic would be like this group right here. So this common ancestor right here and all of the descendants, groups A, B, and C, that's a monophyletic clade. Sometimes we might use terms that are taxonomic terms that do not represent monophyletic clades. They might be paraphyletic, meaning that they contain some of the ancestors, one of the ancestor in some of the lineages that result from that ancestor, but not all of them. Or they might be polyphyletic, like for example, aquatic mammals, right? That's a term that we use to describe mammals that live in the ocean or live in an aquatic environment exclusively, but that term does not represent their phylogeny because not all aquatic mammals came from the same lineage. They don't all share their common ancestor. So for example here, with the term reptile, here we have birds. Birds are a descendant of the reptile group. But in our usage of the term reptile, birds are not included, right? So there's some disagreement amongst biologists if birds should be part of the reptile clade or not. They're not classified, they're in a different class than reptiles. But phylogenetically, evolutionarily, they're very closely related. Okay, they're most closely related to crocodiles. So reptiles then would be a paraphyletic group and not a clade. This group right here, mammals, all of these reptiles and birds, this would be a monophyletic clade called the amniotes. They'll create an amniotic egg. Okay, so kind of how we divide up a group, the taxonomy does not always reflect that phylogeny, right? So these would be reptiles, but the phylogenetic tree tells us that these should also be reptiles too, but we don't use that term to talk about birds being reptiles.